My name's Stephen McLaughlin. I'm a current long-term employee of 14 years of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Healthboard. This video is the first in a series of videos that's going to be released for the purposes of public disclosure and whistleblowing into my employer, Greater Glasgow and Clyde Healthboard. This is specifically surrounding the subjects of organisational corruption, severe targeted victimisation and abuse, the concealment of contaminated water supplies, and the purposeful concealment for responsibility of death, alongside multiple abhorrent, unethical and immoral actions by my employer. The allegations that I'm making are extreme, as I fully appreciate. However, they're also closely linked to the similar behavioural concerns that are attributed to Greater Glasgow and Clyde associated with the Queen Elizabeth current public inquiry scandal surrounding the contaminated water supply that killed multiple people. It specifically focuses on the severe victimisation and abuse of those that Greater Glasgow and Clyde Healthboard deem as a threat to exposure of their conduct and corrupt actions. It's my intent through the release of this video and subsequent videos also to display to the public that the concerns that are attributed to the looming corporate homicide charges are not actually one-off isolated incidents as my employer is trying to portray. They are in fact just an example of well-established repetitive behaviours by an organisation that is entrenched in institutionalised cover-ups, corruption, abuse, victimisation and potential serious criminality. I've worked for Greater Glasgow and Clyde for 14 years. I've got a Bachelor of Science degree with distinction. I've got a vast experience in mental health. I've also been a medical emergency response lecturer to all forms of medical staff from consultant level downwards, and I've got a vast experience of the logistics of how Greater Glasgow and Clyde conducts itself through my own experience. I intend through the release of these videos to show you exactly how Greater Glasgow and Clyde has conducted itself and how these situations have played out. I'm going to take you through a few slides within the content of this video, and then in subsequent videos I'm going to get into more depth into the logistics and intricacies of the different situations that I'm going to relate to yourselves over the next few weeks. The first slide that I'm going to show you is the atrocious case of Miss Kirsten Cooper. As you can see by the heading of that newspaper report, it's quite dramatic. Mum suing Scots Hospital after she was accused of trying to murder her disabled daughter. Now, Miss Cooper had a daughter who was a patient in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Glasgow. And Miss Cooper, through no fault of her own, had triggered a process that was imminently about to uncover the contaminated water cover-up scandal. As a result, Miss Cooper found herself severely victimised and targeted by being falsely accused of trying to kill her own daughter using multiple falsified records and accusations. Now, this situation went to court, and the judge found that the allegations against Miss Cooper as completely fabricated and unsubstantiated. This lady, I can't even begin to imagine what this lady has went through. She's went through an awful lot worse than me. But she has had to go to the extremity of having to sue the health board for her experience. Now, within 6 months of this absolutely atrocious incident, I, as a member of staff, also inadvertently triggered a process that was imminently about to uncover another contaminated water supply cover-up in another hospital in the same health board. Also, in an almost mirror image case of Kirsten Cooper's, I was similarly targeted and framed for the responsibility of trying to kill a patient, once again using multiple falsified documents, statements and reports. Now, this is the same tactics carried out by the same health board for the same reasons within 6 months of each other. Both myself and Miss Cooper had inadvertently triggered processes that independently were about to uncover contaminated water supplies in 2 separate independent hospitals within the same health board, and both individuals were targeted and falsely and maliciously portrayed as responsible for trying to kill patients in order to obstruct the processes that we had inadvertently triggered that was about to expose corruption, cover-ups and major scandal within the exact same health board. Now, further to this, in a parallel scandal, I'm going to go into more detail about this case in the subsequent videos that I'm going to relay to yourselves, because it's quite a complex and intricate situation. You'll read by the title of this newspaper article, once again very dramatic. Admit what you did to our father. This is a case of Mr. Edward McCluskey. Now, this is a gentleman that I was accused of trying to kill. Now, although I was repeatedly shouting from the absolute rooftops to Greater Glasgow and Clyde that the investigation into this man had been falsified because I knew that the documents that were inside the investigation were fake, I did not know that Mr. McCluskey's family were subsequently outside the NHS saying the exact same allegations and concerns. They were repeatedly making the claim that the investigation into Mr. McCluskey's death had been falsified, the report had been falsified. The exact same allegations that I was making, unbeknownst to me, they were making the exact same allegations outside the NHS. Now, to this very day, I continue to state and corroborate and support the McCluskey's claims. NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde did falsify that investigation, and the report and results that were handed to Mr. McCluskey's family were falsified, and they are indeed correct. Now, to just summarise here, what I've just told you is about the case of Kirstine Cooper, who was framed for trying to kill her own daughter to stop her triggering a process that was about to uncover in a contaminated water supply that had killed multiple people. Myself, who was also framed for the responsibility for trying to kill someone, once again using the exact same tactics of multiple fraudulent fake documents in order to falsely portray me as responsible for trying to kill somebody, in order to stop a process that I'd triggered that was once again about to uncover another contaminated water supply in the exact same health board. Also the case of Mr. McCluskey, whose family were intentionally lied to by the falsification of the report and investigation into his death in order to downplay the NHS's role into his death. I was portrayed as responsible for his death 8 months after the situation. The report into his death that had been falsified was actually carried out months earlier. When I was then falsely accused of his death, they went back to the investigation that they were already desensitised to carrying out corrupt actions to, and then falsified further information, statements, a risk assessment, and the report to falsely portray me as responsible for trying to kill him 8 months later. I'm going to go into much greater detail into Mr. McCluskey's case to show you exactly how they carried this out in subsequent videos. If I was to do this today, we would be here for a long time, and I'm trying to get through as much as I can to introduce you to the topic of the scandal as a whole. Now, what you see in front of you is an email from myself to the Chief Executive and the Chairman of the Board. Now, these emails are quite substantial, so feel free to pause them and read them if you feel fit. And I'm going to just take you through these and take you to the specific parts of these emails that's helping support the point that I'm trying to make within the content of this video. Now, as you can see at the bottom there, it says, to reiterate unequivocally for the third time, the allegations encompass grave matters including criminal activities, the falsification of records, the fabrication of investigatory reports, the concealment of responsibility for death, purposely lying to the family of a deceased patient about how he died, the suppression of information regarding a long-term contaminated water supply, the systematic destruction of evidence, the recurrent manipulation the recurring manipulation and closure of investigations that could implicate senior management within Greater Glasgow and Clyde, using fraudulent documentation concluded by Police Scotland to be fake to maliciously frame me for the responsibility of the death of a patient due to my risk of exposure surrounding the long-term cover-up of a contaminated water supply at Ravenscraig Hospital. Now, I could not be any clearer in the communication I'm sending to these senior individuals who are in charge of the management of this organisation. These allegations that I am making are the most extreme that you could possibly make. I am specifically telling them that your organisation has been involved in potential serious criminality of the worst kind, going to the level of concealment for responsibility of death and intentionally and maliciously victimising and abusing individuals by falsely portraying them as trying to kill people in order to conceal the corruption that this organisation has been a part of. Now, I'm going to draw your attention there to the last part, which is talking about the documents that Police Scotland deemed to be fake. Now, just to give a bit of background to that, I approached Police Scotland and showed them the documentation that I stated was fake. The CID officer at the time looked at that, and his response to me was that I couldn't make the complaint. The only people that could make the complaint were the family of the deceased person or the organisation themselves. What he did do was he took me through a systematic breakdown of the document that he believed also to be fake and why he believed it to be fake. He told me to relay that to NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde. He then said that once they were confronted with the evidence and the systematic breakdown of why the document is deemed to be fake, they would be legally obligated to contact Police Scotland and trigger the investigation. I then left there and followed his instructions to the letter and done exactly that. NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde refused categorically to contact Police Scotland. The situation that I'm presenting to you is absolutely of the most abhorrent nature that anybody could imagine for a health board to be implicated in. I am making these allegations repeatedly and have done so for many years. This has been going on since 2017. This is now 2024. I have requested the involvement of Police Scotland from NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde on 25 separate occasions up to this point now. I have corroborated and supported the claims of the McCluskey family to NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, saying that the documents and reports were falsified. Alongside the corroborating allegations that the McCluskey family were making, NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde still refused to contact the police, despite a current member of staff making the allegations that the reports and investigations into a patient's death were falsified, and the family of the same deceased man saying exactly the same thing. I have multiple times tried to give them the evidence for this. They have refused to investigate it. They have corruptly and abusively shut down every single investigation without appropriate investigation into the topic. Now, as you can see here, this is a Sunday Post that was reporting on my own repeated attempts to try and get Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board to contact the police. As you can see there, nurse claims he has pleaded with the NHS bosses to report the patient's death to the police 22 times. That is now 25 times at this point, and is still fighting for the truth. This is a response by the Director of Human Resources. As you can just have a look there at the bottom in the highlighted section, this is what this lady says. No one within NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde will be contacting Police Scotland, nor will we be opening any further discussions on any matter. Now, this is despite the absolute severity and abhorrent nature of the allegations that I am making repeatedly of the most alarming scale surrounding the cover-up of responsibility for death, the falsification of reports, the falsification of investigations, the cover-up of contaminated water supplies, severe victimisation and abuse, corruption on an unimaginable level, and they are actively trying to obstruct the contacting of Police Scotland. Why would an NHS board that is supposed to be absolutely focused on the saving of life the saving of patients and ensuring the health and safety of patients at all times, be continuously refusing to contact the police when allegations of such severity are repeatedly being made, not only by a member of staff, but by the family of the deceased patient themselves. I'll let you judge yourself if you think this person should be in the post they're in. I can't make my claims any more clear. I have been shouting from the rooftops for a long time now for NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde to be investigated. It's very clear to me that no efforts that I make in any internal investigations are going to be subject to appropriate investigation. All I've been subject to is victimisation and abuse in the most abhorrent nature, and it's still ongoing at this point right now. This is another email that I sent to the Chief Executive of the Health Board. Once again, I'm just showing you this to reinforce to you that I'm repeatedly making the exact same allegations over and over, and these people are under no illusion of the gravity of the things that I am saying, trying to whistleblow on this absolutely abhorrent conduct of this organisation. A grotesque volume of instances involving intentional abuse of policy to maintain and prolong cover-ups related to collaborative, organised corruption and potential serious criminality, the deliberate falsification of reports and documents surrounding death, purposely lying to the family of a deceased patient about the responsibility for death, the repeated abuse of protocol to conceal the above on numerous occasions, the long-term concealment of a contaminated water supply at Ravenscraig Hospital that's potentially impacted thousands of vulnerable mentally ill patients as well as staff. This includes the sadly now deceased, and I've had to just redact that there for the purposes of public disclosure and sensitivity to the person who's unfortunately passed away. As you can see within this communication, is again, I can't read all of this because we would be here all day. Feel free to pause these emails and read through them at your own leisure if you wish to do so. What I've done here is to drill home to these individuals, is to highlight and reinforce the similarities to the case of Lucy Letby. I'll just read this part for you. I wish to redirect your focus to the widely known case of Nurse Lucy Letby, where senior officials of another health board are accused of concealing accountability for her heinous actions over an extended duration. This was carried out with the sole motive of safeguarding the health board's reputation at the grave expense of vulnerable infants. I draw parallels not in the nature of the crimes, but in the reprehensible conduct of our own health board, which has deliberately endeavoured to conceal the atrocities I have consistently tried to expose on countless occasions. This has been done solely to protect the public image of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board. Now, that's as raw as it gets. Any individual that reads that, which was the Chief Executive and Chairman of the board, that reads that is under no illusion of the gravity of what I am accusing them of at this point. I've also, just to reinforce my perspective now, as I said previously, I've been subject to the most, it's just been continuous victimisation and abuse of policy, abuse of procedure, targeted beyond belief. To be quite honest, how I'm still going on with this, I've got no idea. If it wasn't for the support of the people around about me, I don't know where I'd be. As a qualified, registered and licensed nurse, I've taken an oath of responsibility to confront corruption and take appropriate measures to ensure patient safety to the very best of my abilities. The following course of action is a final last resort and demonstration of my complete dedication and loyalty to patient safety, even in the face of such overwhelmingly daunting circumstances. By that, I'm referring to this public disclosure. I have absolutely exhausted every single outlet that I can possibly source in order for this organisation to be investigated and these people to be held to account. At every single point in this situation, I have been stonewalled, silenced, abused, victimised. There is nothing that I do in any internal investigatory procedure that's going to be appropriately addressed. In addition to that, there is also instances where Greater Glasgow and Clyde has directly influenced and controlled the investigations of external organisations in order to whitewash the investigation and come to a conclusion that suits their agenda. I will go into further detail regarding this in subsequent videos that I'm going to release. In addition to what I've already said about the absolutely abhorrent actions that I've repeatedly drilled home, is the conduct of the organisation to keep it a secret. Now this, once again, is to the Chief Executive and Chairman of the Board, this email. And I'm discussing and highlighting the investigatory procedures that have been manipulatively and abusively shut down without appropriate investigation. Firstly, the 2 investigatory hearings, the officers refused to investigate falsified documents related to a patient's death, which were analysed and concluded to be fake by Police Scotland. A grievance hearing that was abruptly closed through the manipulation without being subject to an investigation. An appeal hearing that was also manipulatively closed down without being subject to an investigation. 2 disciplinary hearings that took place in which serious evidence incriminating multiple senior officials was disregarded and refused investigation. A self-declared serious organisational investigation that was manipulatively downgraded to a mere desktop review and subsequently closed down without investigation. This is despite the family of a deceased patient making a public statement in the national press supporting my serious allegations that the NHS had falsified an investigation and reports into his death. Now that is not including the whistleblowing procedure that, despite being presented with the evidence that I had, they shut that down without any investigation. Every single internal procedure the NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde has at its disposal is corrupt. There is no experience I have had through the multitude of investigatory practices in which anything is appropriately investigated. The magnitude of the issues at hand, coupled with the links to serious organisational corruption within the ranks of the organisation and their implications on loss of life, necessitates your urgent attention. This is especially so given the parallel accusations of a very similar nature within the public inquiry associated with yet another contaminated water supply at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Glasgow. Now, I don't know what else I can say to these people. I have been as clear as I possibly can. I have consistently confronted them. I've reminded them of health and safety legislation, their responsibility to public protection, their responsibility to the law, their responsibility to procedure, to policy, and just morals and ethics. These people do not care. There is nothing that I have done up to this point where they have conducted themselves in an appropriate manner. Now, there is another video on this media page where you'll see the victimisation that I have personally been subject to for confronting these individuals about their behaviour and conduct to the organisation. Now, that particular video is just a video for sickness absence review, but it's very clear and extremely evident the level of abuse of policy and corruption, victimisation and targeted discrimination that I'm receiving at the hands of seniority in this organisation. Now, the slide that you're looking at the moment is a newspaper article. Now, this is the mother of one of the children who sadly passed away through the contaminated water situation in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. This is Kimberly Darragh. Now, this, I cannot imagine what this woman has went through. Now, Miss Darragh makes it very clear that the public inquiry into the building of several Scottish hospitals, including the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, that her child's death was murder. Now, she believes the NHS Greater Glasgow knew exactly what they were doing. Now, not in terms of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, but the allegations that I'm making related to Ravenscraig Hospital, the victimisation of me, the concealment of the cover-up of the contaminated water supply in Ravenscraig Hospital, the victimisation and abuse of me, the cover-up of Mr McCluskey's death. It's all related because it's exactly the same behaviours that are continuously entrenched in the seniority of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board. These are not isolated incidents. These are not mistakes. It's very clear through the repetitive actions of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board that their intention, their sole intention, is only to protect the reputation of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board, which is evident in everything that they have done related to my case. Now, I'm taking you now to the case of Lucy Letby, where, as I say, I'm not saying for in any way, shape or form that this case is worse than that, but in terms of the health board, I mean, the public responded to that in absolute outrage at the neglect that health board repeatedly displayed in order to not react to the warnings that were repeatedly given to them by the medical staff in those hospitals regarding Lucy Letby. If they would have listened to those staff, that case might never even have went half as far. Now, the absolute outrage that the public has displayed related to that case because of their neglect is absolutely justified. The allegations that I am making about Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board are not neglect. They are premeditated, coordinated, intentional, collaborative actions that they have repeatedly made in a tactical manner in order to victimise, abuse, close investigations, intimidate, in order to protect the reputation of Greater Glasgow and Clyde and protect those that are responsible for the actions that I have repeatedly stated in the content of this video. So in terms of the behaviour of the health boards in comparison to each other, Greater Glasgow and Clyde is in a completely different ballgame in comparison to the health board that was neglectful towards the Lucy Letby case. I'm now taking you to the post office scandal. Now, the whole country cannot believe that this scandal happened all these years ago, where these individuals were targeted and falsely accused, and this was allowed to occur in a modern day society. Now, the public are still outraged to this day. How could that possibly happen? What I'm telling you now and the allegations that I'm making are happening right now. This is not historical. This is still happening right now. These people are still in charge. This is a current live case. I am an ongoing current employee of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board through a whistleblowing public disclosure, openly telling the public that that organisation is entrenched in corruption, cover-ups, victimisation and abuse, and it cannot be trusted in any internal investigatory procedure because all it has done up till this point is abusively close them all down without appropriate investigation and refuse to phone the police on 25 separate occasions, despite the most severe criminal allegations being made by me and the families of deceased patients. Why would a health board repeatedly refuse to contact the police when such severe allegations of criminality? They do not have the right to be able to decide if the police should be phoned when severe criminal allegations are made with the responsibility of cover up a death, contaminated water supplies, falsification of reports, falsification of evidence. They shouldn't have a choice to phone the police. They need to phone the police. That email that I showed you through that Director of Human Resources that absolutely arrogantly stated that she would not be contacting the police is absolutely astonishes me. I am making an appeal right now to the First Minister and the Health Minister to remove these individuals at the senior ranks of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board with immediate effect and reinstigate the shadow board as you have done before. Draw a line in the sand and show that the government prioritises patient safety over bureaucracy. Remove these individuals from their posts until an independent, completely independent investigation is carried out into this overall conduct of the Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board seniority. Do not allow these individuals to continue to be responsible for patient care when such severe allegations are being repeatedly made by me, who is an ongoing current employee, and multiple families of dead patients. These people need to be removed. They are actively destroying evidence, they're actively abusing their positions to shut down investigations, they're influencing external organisations in order to whitewash investigations, and they are still in post. I implore that you please reinstigate the shadow board and remove I am screaming this from the rooftops because I have absolute severe concerns for patient and staff safety with individuals who I know firsthand have carried out these acts are still in charge of a health board that is supposed to be saving people. I don't know what else to say. This video is protected under Public Disclosures 43B, subsection A, B, C, D, E and F due to the severity and nature of the same. I'm going to systematically release the evidence to back up all the claims and allegations that I've made in subsequent videos over the next few weeks. I have recordings, personal recordings of the chief executive and the chairman of the board in which I confronted them with these allegations in person in a meeting that lasted over an hour. And ironically, the audio recording that was officially taking place had conveniently malfunctioned. Thankfully, the person that I was with had anticipated this move, as they've done this now on a number of occasions, and they recorded the meeting which I have in my possession. Now, when a chairman of the board and a chief executive has been presented with the allegations, exact same allegations as I'm making here today, and they refuse to phone the police, I'll let you come to your own judgment if you feel that is appropriate or not, or for an HR director to be stating that they will not be phoning the police, given the severity of the things that I am repeatedly not saying, I'm shouting these. I implore that the MPs, the people in power, as I said previously, draw a line in the sand and show the public that they are prioritising patient safety. I am a current member of staff telling you that the families of these deceased patients, their concerns that they are raising related to corruption, cover-ups and potential criminality are justified because they have done this before. This is not one-off isolated incidents. There is nothing else that I can do other than bare my soul on this video to the public to openly state what I believe to be severe organisational corruption at the helm of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board to protect people that have been involved in abuse, severe victimisation, organisational criminality, potentially, and the most abhorrent corruption that you could possibly imagine. If the post office scandal was terrible, so is this. I would very much appreciate it if somebody stepped in and done something. I'm going to leave you with that because I don't know what else to say. I apologise if I seem a wee bit raw at the end of this video, but I'm exhausted with this, and I am begging the MPs or whoever to please step in and remove these individuals and reinstigate the shadow board and remove these people from power until such times as an investigatory procedure that's completely independent has been completed. Please remove them until that point, for the sake of patient and staff safety and care. I'd be quite willing to engage with any investigatory procedure that anybody does that is completely independent, but what I will say is I will no longer engage with any other NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde investigatory procedure because they're all corrupt, as evident in my experience and the proof that I've got. Just on the fact that they've refused to phone the police when I've said the allegations that I've repeatedly said to you, and they've not contacted the police, what does that tell you? Why would a health board 25 times refuse to contact the police when somebody that works for them is saying the exact same things, as severe as I'm saying, as the patients and the families of the patients of the deceased? Surely they would want to phone the police to make sure that the organisation was safe and the patients were safe and the staff. No, they're not just not doing it, they're actually abusing me, victimising me repeatedly, as you'll see by the other video that's on this media platform, in which I was encountering a senior manager and an HR personnel person that was very evidently not going alongside policy in order to continuously prolong the victimisation that I've experienced. Anyway, I thank you for taking the time for putting up with me in this video, and I hope that everybody please share this video on as many platforms as you can. And Twitter, tweet everybody, tweet as many MPs as you can. Share it on your profile pages as much as you can, because as much people need to see this as possibly can see it, because this country needs to know exactly what NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde is all about. And I am sitting here with a mountain of evidence to back up everything that I'm saying. Thank you for your time.